So talent is real.
Yeah.
Um, is that a specific challenge or rebuttal to the Ericsson model? If you put enough practice in, you'll probably get there, or you'll get to the top.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's really unfortunate that Anders passed away when he did, because him and I had just started to unpack some of these
Mm.
things. We were lucky enough to spend a week together in Israel a year before he died. And I presented the talent view, and he presented the deliberate practice view, and we came to a place where they weren't actually adversarial in the way that they were being used. And I think, I don't want to put words in Anders's mouth, but I think he didn't say talent didn't exist as much as he thought it was irrelevant to understanding athlete development. That people with talent would be the ones that were there to do the deliberate practice. They were the ones that were going to be in the system. And so, from a predictive standpoint, the group would be relatively homogeneous for talent. That would be so it wouldn't have any predictive value. Um, for me, I think the argument that talent is real is pretty solid and robust, because otherwise you have to say everybody's equally likely to have achievement in any domain. You could pick the domain at random, put somebody in it, and have them do enough deliberate practice that they could emerge as a genius or a superstar. I don't think anybody argues that, and it's quite a straw man argument to set that up. Um, the differences between people, whether those are physical, I think the heritability estimates for almost every psychological variable we have shows high heritability as well. So almost every variable we're interested in terms of athlete development has some kind of heritability associated with it. And so when I talk about talent being real, that's what I'm talking about, is the population-based differences between people that go back to their raw genetic material. That doesn't mean that talent is the only thing. It doesn't mean that there's one fixed profile with talent at the beginning that's going to, spread out and eventually lead to expert performance. No, it's it's just stating that there are differences between individuals that affect their likelihood of success. So that's a very research, sort of theory based conceptualization of talent. My argument for coaches is to forget about talent in almost any situation. Forget about talent, because it has too much baggage as a word. If you believe you see talent, you're probably wrong. Your forecasts of talent identification are very inaccurate. And so for practitioners, I think it does more harm than good. But as a theoretical concept, I think there's some strength to that idea.
So could you just lean into that phrase? So if you see talent, you're probably wrong. Is is that just are you just trying to be provocative there in terms of just that sense of um, what our preconceived ideas are? We're mapping or projecting our own thoughts and images of what we think are successful, or the highlight moments that we're remembering that we're imprinting on somebody else's performances. And I'm keen to just expand that one a little bit for coaches who do
Sure.
listen, um, because that's quite tricky for them to do, isn't it?
It is, but it's so the way we look at it is, when you think about talent as being something that can be identified, and particularly early in the pathway, you treat your athletes different than if you thought it was something that needed to be nurtured and developed and put in the right environment. Seeds don't become plants because they're planted. They become plants because of the environment that they're put into. And that's the way that we need to be thinking about athletes is, whether there's talent or no talent, I can design an environment that can optimize the development and the experience of all the athletes under my care. That's the approach to coaching that we're trying to emphasize, not to sort of dismiss the idea of talent altogether, but just when you think you see it, particularly early in development, you think about athletes in a more fixed capacity than we want you to be thinking about them. And the reason we say that you're probably wrong is because of the pervasiveness of things like relative age effects, the socioeconomic status effects, geographic effects, these kinds of things that we see that pervade across the athlete development system that we see at the end, but are probably operating at the beginning. When everybody equalizes in terms of biological maturation and growth, the relative age effect doesn't go away because the selections that coaches do early on continue to exist in that system.